Jack lived alone in a small house at the edge of the forest. He liked quiet nights, strong tea, and watching stars from his porch. It was a peaceful life, away from the noise of the city and the troubles of the world. The wind whispered through the trees, and the sky above was full of stars. It was just like every other night until he heard the knock. It was close to midnight. The wind was strong, and rain had started to fall. He thought maybe it was just the wind pushing something against the door. But then it came again, louder this time, 3 sharp knocks. Jack stood up slowly, his heart beating fast. No one ever came to his house, especially not at this hour. He reached for the old metal pipe he kept by the door and opened it a little. What he saw made him freeze. 2 girls were standing there, shaking from the cold, their hair wet and sticking to their faces. Behind them, an old woman lay on the ground, wrapped in some kind of silver blanket. The girls didn't look normal, not completely. Their skin was smooth, but had a slight shimmer. Their eyes too large and too bright, but they looked scared, not dangerous. One of the girls stepped forward and spoke. Her voice soft. "Please help us," she said. "They are coming." Jack didn't ask questions. He opened the door wide and helped them inside. The older girl carried the younger one, who was limping. Jack picked up the old woman gently and placed her on his couch. She was burning with fever. Her breathing shallow. He gave them towels, blankets, and warm tea. They drank it like they hadn't eaten or slept in days. He watched them closely, trying to understand. "Who are you?" he asked. "Where did you come from?" The girls looked at each other. Then the older one said, "We can't tell you everything, not yet, but we didn't mean to come here. We were running. They were chasing us. Who is chasing you?" Jack asked, but she didn't answer. Instead, she looked at the window, her eyes wide with fear. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the wind still howled. Jack closed the blinds and turned off the lights. He didn't want anyone to know they were here. He didn't know what kind of trouble he was getting into. But something inside told him these girls needed him, and he couldn't throw them back out into the night. The younger girl suddenly stood up and ran to the window. "They're here," she whispered. Jack rushed over, but saw nothing. Just trees, darkness, and distant hills. Then he noticed blue lights flashing far off in the forest. Moving slowly, not police cars, something else. Flying machines. Silent and smooth, almost like they were floating. The older girl grabbed his arm. "They can smell us, feel us. We have to hide." Jack led them to his basement, a place he hadn't used in years. It was dusty, full of old tools and boxes. But it was safe. He gave them a mattress and pillows, told them to rest. The old woman groaned in pain, her face pale and tired. Jack didn't know how to help her, but he covered her in blankets and gave her some medicine he had. Hours passed slowly. Jack stayed upstairs, watching through the windows. At one point, he saw shadows move near the trees, too tall, too fast, not human. Something was definitely searching the area. Just before dawn, he stepped outside. The ground was soft from the rain, and he saw it clearly. Tracks. Long, strange footprints, circling his house. Whoever or whatever had come, they had almost found the girls. But they were gone now. For the moment, when Jack came back inside, he found the older girl sitting at the top of the basement stairs. She looked up at him with tired eyes. "Thank you," she said. Jack didn't know what to say. He had so many questions, but deep inside, he already knew one thing: his quiet life was over. Everything had changed in one night, and he had no idea what was coming next. The morning sun rose slowly, lighting up the sky with soft orange and gold. But Jack didn't feel peace. He stood in the kitchen, staring at the warm cup of tea in his hand. His thoughts were loud, spinning with questions. Who were these girls? Why were they running? And who had come looking for them last night? Down in the basement, it was quiet. The girls and the old woman were still asleep. They looked peaceful now, like any normal family trying to rest after a long journey. But Jack knew better. There was nothing normal about them. Their skin, their eyes, their fear was not from this world. And those lights in the sky, the footprints, none of it made sense. After some time, the older girl came upstairs. She was wearing one of Jack's old shirts, too big for her, but dry and warm. She looked tired, but calm. Jack gave her toast and eggs, and she ate slowly. Watching him carefully, he finally spoke. "You have to tell me something," he said. "I helped you. I let you in. But I need to know what's going on." The girl wiped her mouth and nodded. "My name is Lyra," she said. "The little one is Nia. And the old woman is our grandmother. We call her Maeve." Jack waited, and she continued. "We are not from here. I figured that," Jack said. Trying to sound calm, Lyra gave a small smile. But her eyes were full of sadness. "We come from Taris, a planet far from here," she said. "But we didn't come by choice." Jack listened carefully. Lyra told him they were brought to Earth months ago. Not by humans, but by a secret group that worked in shadows. This group was studying alien species, capturing them, testing them, using them. They called it Project Dawnlight, Lyra said. They wanted to create something new, something powerful. They took DNA from different species. Trying to mix it with humans, Jack frowned. "That's sick," he said. Lyra nodded. "We were taken from our home and locked in a research facility," she said. "They hurt Maeve. They tested her every day. She got sick. And they stopped caring, so we ran." Jack sat down slowly. All of this was too big, too strange, but he believed her. Not just because of her words, but because of her eyes filled with pain no child should carry. "Why come to me?" Jack asked. "Why my house?" Lyra looked away, then said softly, "Nia saw you in her dream. She sees things sometimes. Future things." Jack was quiet. Dreams, visions, aliens. Was this really his life now? But he couldn't deny it. They were here, and they were in danger. "I need to get medicine for your grandmother," he said. "She's burning with fever." Lyra nodded. But her face turned serious. "Be careful. They're still looking for us." Jack grabbed his coat and keys. He drove his old truck toward the town, which was quiet, like always, but something felt off. Too quiet. He stopped at the local pharmacy, grabbed fever medicine and antibiotics as he paid. He noticed a man in a black coat standing near the door. The man was tall, stiff, and wore dark glasses. He wasn't from around here. When Jack left, the man followed him with his eyes. Jack didn't look back, but he felt it. He drove straight home, taking the long road through the woods. When he arrived, he parked behind the trees and walked the rest of the way. Just in case, back at the house, Lyra opened the door before he even knocked. "You were followed," she said. Jack looked behind him, but saw nothing. "How do you know?" he asked. Lyra touched her temple. "I felt it." They went inside and gave the medicine to Maeve. She opened her eyes for a moment and whispered something in a language Jack didn't understand. Lyra held her hand and spoke softly back, tears in her eyes. Jack felt like he was in the middle of something ancient, something powerful. This wasn't just science or experiments. This was family, pain, and survival that night. Jack couldn't sleep. He stayed near the window, a flashlight in one hand and his old pipe in the other. The wind moved the trees gently, but every sound made his heart jump. He didn't ask for this life. He didn't ask to become protector of alien sisters and their dying grandmother. But something inside him had already changed. He looked down at his hands, once used for fixing fences, planting seeds, drinking tea. Now they were hands ready to fight, ready to defend. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew he would protect them. No matter what, and far off in the distance, hidden among the trees, someone watched, waiting. Jack opened his eyes to the sound of whispering. It was still dark, but the sky was slowly turning gray. He sat up on the couch, his neck sore, and listened. The voices were coming from the basement, soft and serious. He got up quietly and walked down the steps. There, he saw Lyra and Nia sitting beside their grandmother, holding her hands and speaking in their language. When Jack entered, they went silent, looking at him with tired eyes. "How is she?" he asked. Lyra sighed. "She's stable, but still weak." Jack nodded, then said, "You can't stay in the basement forever." He looked around at the cold concrete walls, the boxes of old tools and broken furniture. "This place isn't safe enough." He led them outside once the sun came up. The morning air was cool and fresh, and the trees rustled gently. Jack took them to the back of his land, where an old wooden shed stood near the edge of the forest. It looked worn down and unused, covered in dust and cobwebs. But inside, there was something more. A trapdoor beneath the floorboards, hidden under a pile of crates. Jack lifted it and revealed a steel ladder going down. "I built this years ago during the storm season," he said. "It's deep, dry, and no one knows it's here." The space below was like a bunker, small but strong, with metal walls, shelves, and a solar battery system. He had stored food, water, and supplies here, just in case of emergencies. Now, it felt like the perfect hiding place. They moved Maeve down first, slowly and carefully. Then the girls followed, looking around in quiet awe. "This is good," Lyra said. "Better than we hoped for." Jack gave them warm blankets, a small heater, and his old radio. It wasn't much, but it was safe. And that mattered now. Later that afternoon, while the girls rested, Jack went to the shed again to bring down more supplies. As he searched through the boxes, he heard a sound like a low hum. He turned and saw Nia standing behind him, her hand on the metal wall. The wall was glowing faintly under her touch. "What are you doing?" Jack asked, surprised. Nia looked up at him, her eyes wide and calm. "It speaks to me," she said softly. "The metal? It remembers." Jack didn't understand. He watched as Nia moved her hand in a circle, and the wall pulsed with light. Then, in front of his eyes, an old screen lit up. One Jack had never seen before. It was part of a machine he had found years ago in the forest. Broken and buried, he brought it home thinking it was junk. But now, it came to life. Lyra arrived, her eyes sharp with worry. "Nia, not here," she said quickly. Pulling her sister's hand away, the screen dimmed and went dark. Jack stepped forward. "What was that? What did she just do?" Lyra looked away, then said, "We didn't want to tell you yet, but Nia, she's different. She was born after the experiments began," she continued. "Part of her DNA is not just Terrian, it's mixed with something else, something human." Jack blinked. "You mean? She's part human?" Lyra nodded. "She's never been sick, never afraid. And sometimes she knows things before they happen. She sees the future. She feels machines, and sometimes she even hears voices in metal." Jack stared at the old wall panel. Still warm from the glow, he remembered finding that strange piece of tech in the woods. It was shaped like a box, smooth and cold, but no one knew what it was. Now he understood. Nia had activated it. "She said the metal remembers," Jack whispered. "Yes," Lyra replied. "It remembers you too." Jack turned. "Confused? What do you mean?" Lyra looked nervous but serious. Nia saw it in her vision, this place, this bunker. "Even you're not just helping us, Jack. You're connected to all of this." Jack shook his head. "That's not possible. My parents were farmers. I've never been part of anything special." Lyra stepped closer. "Do you remember anything strange in your childhood?" dreams, feelings. Times when machines worked better around you? Jack froze. He did. He remembered how the old generator would only start when he touched it. How radios would play even without batteries. He always thought it was just luck. That night, Jack sat alone in the shed. Staring at the glowing wall, he touched it gently. And the metal warmed under his fingers. Was it true? Was he part of something bigger? He looked up at the sky through the open hatch. Stars blinked above him, silent and far away. But maybe, just maybe, they had been watching him all along. Behind him, Nia whispered in her sleep. "They're coming back," she said. Her voice soft and clear. But this time, "We'll be ready." The air was different that morning. Jack could feel it the moment he stepped outside. Still, the birds were quiet. And the wind barely moved the trees. Even the sun seemed colder than usual. Something was coming. He walked the edge of his land slowly. Scanning the forest, every broken branch, every footprint in the dirt made him stop and listen. It had been 2 days since Nia activated the strange panel in the shed. Since then, Jack felt like something had shifted. He wasn't just hiding aliens anymore. He was part of something larger. Something watching from the shadows. He went back to the bunker and found Lyra cleaning one of his old tools. It wasn't a weapon, but she held it like one. "I don't want to run again," she said without looking up. Jack nodded. "Then we make a plan." They turned the shed into a trap. Jack had been a builder once. Before he moved to the quiet life, he knew how to set wires, pressure plates, and hidden trip alarms. He placed motion sensors around the trees and tied fishing lines to bells. Simple but effective. It wouldn't stop a full army. But it would slow someone down. Lyra helped him with focus. She was fast, smart, and calm under pressure. Jack showed her how to reload his old hunting rifle. Her hands shook at first, but she learned quickly. "You sure you want to fight?" he asked. "Lyra didn't hesitate. If they find us, they won't take us alive inside the bunker." Nia sat next to her grandmother. Maeve had not spoken since yesterday, but she breathed easier now. Nia held her hand and hummed softly. Jack listened from the stairs. There was something healing in that hum, like a song from a place he'd never been, but somehow remembered. At nightfall, the alarms rang. The first bell clinked near the west fence, then a second one near the shed. Jack grabbed his rifle. Lyra took a long metal pipe, and they both moved silently through the trees. In the moonlight, shadows moved 3 figures, tall, armored, and walking without sound. They looked human at first, but their skin reflected silver when the light hit. Their faces were hidden behind glass masks. Hunter's Lyra touched Jack's arm. "That's them," she whispered. "The ones from the facility." He nodded, breathing slow and deep. They waited until the first one stepped near the hidden pit. With a soft crack, the hunter fell, landing hard in the hole Jack had covered with leaves and dirt. He didn't move. The other 2 froze, confused for a second, and that was enough. Jack stepped out and fired. The bullet hit one in the shoulder. Spinning him around, the second raised a weapon. But Lyra swung the pipe with all her strength. It cracked against the mask, sending the hunter stumbling. They fought hard, quick, and with no words. It was not a battle, it was survival. The one with the broken mask tried to grab Lyra, but Jack tackled him to the ground and hit him again and again until he stopped moving. Blood soaked the leaves, black and thick. The air smelled like metal and smoke. Jack stood up, panting, hands shaking. Lyra stared at him, her face pale. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved yourselves," Jack replied. But it wasn't over. Back at the bunker, Nia stood by the ladder, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "They were scouts," she said. "The others are near." "How many?" Jack asked. Nia didn't answer. Instead, She walked to the center of the bunker and placed her hand on the wall again. It lit up brighter than before, spreading like fire across the metal. Lines of blue light flowed like rivers, forming symbols and patterns. The air buzzed with quiet energy. Lyra stepped back, unsure. Jack watched in silence. Nia's voice changed, no longer soft or small. "The old systems remember me," she said. "They are waking up, then." The ground trembled, just a little, outside. Hidden machines deep in the earth came alive, old tech from the past. Or maybe not from Earth at all. They buried their memories, Nia said. "But I can feel them now. What does that mean?" Jack asked. "It means we're not alone anymore," she replied. Suddenly, from the trees, a sharp beam of light shot across the sky. It hit the shed and burned a hole straight through the roof. They ran outside to see a sleek black ship hovering above the trees. Silent, deadly, scanning the ground below. It had come for them. Jack didn't wait. He grabbed Lyra's hand and shouted. Time to disappear. They ran back to the hidden entrance near the forest's edge. Another secret Jack never thought he'd use. A tunnel built during the first colonist wars, long and forgotten. He had found it by accident years ago and sealed it with stones. Now it was their only escape as they vanished underground. The ship above hovered longer, scanning, searching, waiting, but it was too late. Jack and the sisters were already gone, and the forest went quiet once again. The tunnel was cold, narrow, and damp. Their footsteps echoed in the darkness as they moved deeper underground. Jack led the way with a small flashlight. His rifle slung over his shoulder. Behind him, Lyra carried Nia, who had collapsed after using her power. The young girl was breathing, but weak, her glow dim mauve. The old grandmother was wrapped in blankets. Tied to a small cart, Jack pulled slowly through the passage. No one spoke. There were too many questions, but not enough breath to ask them. Only the sound of dripping water and distant wind filled the silence. After nearly an hour, they reached an old steel door buried in the earth. Jack turned a rusted handle and pushed it open, revealing a forgotten control room. Dust filled the air, and the smell of age clung to every surface. Wires hung from the ceiling, and shattered screens blinked faintly on the walls. "This place used to be part of the old Earth defense system," Jack said. "My dad helped build it before the war. He helped Lyra lay Nia on a broken couch and checked her pulse. Still steady, still alive, but something inside Jack was turning. Nia had said things, seen things about the metal. The memories, even him. What was she trying to tell him? Jack sat beside her and whispered, "Why me, Nia? Why my house, my land?" Nia stirred weakly, eyes fluttering open for a moment. "Because you are part of us," she whispered. Then she fell asleep again. Lyra turned to Jack, her face tense. "She's right, Jack. You felt it too, haven't you? Machines work better when you touch them. Lights flicker when you're angry." Jack didn't want to believe it. "I'm human," he said firmly. "My parents were farmers. I was born on Earth." Lyra walked to the control panel and wiped dust from the cracked glass. "My people can feel energy, truth, life," she said. "And your energy is not fully human." Jack's hands trembled. He remembered his father's stories. Old whispers about special missions, trips to the stars that never showed up on maps, and the strange scars his father had across his back. Scars he never explained. "You think I'm mixed?" Jack asked, voice low. Lyra nodded slowly. "Your blood might carry Terrian strands. Maybe just a little passed from your father. From a choice he made long ago. It's rare. But it happens." Jack stared at his hands. They looked normal, felt normal, but deep inside, something old and hidden stirred. Maybe this was why he never fit in. Why he always preferred silence, machines, stars. Maybe he wasn't just protecting the girls. Maybe he was protecting his own kind. The room fell silent again. Until Maeve, the old grandmother, suddenly opened her eyes. They were sharp, glowing faintly. And filled with knowledge, her voice was dry, but clear. "Child of Earth and Taris," she said, looking straight at Jack. "You carry the echo of both worlds." Jack stepped closer, stunned. "You know me?" Maeve nodded. "I saw you long ago, in visions of war and peace. You stand at the gate between two paths." Then her eyes softened. "Your father saved one of our kind during the first contact years," she said. "He was given something in return, something hidden in his blood. And now it lives in you." Jack could barely breathe. All the strange memories, the old tech he fixed without knowing how. The dreams he never understood, all made sense now. He wasn't just a farmer's son. He was a bridge between two species and he had never known. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're one of us. Jack, you're the reason Nia found this place. Why she trusted you, you were meant to help." He looked around the old control room, dead lights, broken machines, rusted metal. Then he touched a nearby screen. It flickered, blinked, and came to life. Code streamed across it like water returning to a dry river. Lyra stepped back, her mouth slightly open. "You activated it," she whispered. Jack said nothing, just stared at the glowing display. He felt the machine breathing through his hands. From behind, Nia stirred again. "The system knows you," she said weakly. "It remembers the promise your father made." Jack looked down at her. What promise? But Nia had fallen asleep again. Maeve closed her eyes too, exhausted by the effort. Lyra looked at Jack, unsure. "We need to prepare," she said. "The others will come soon, the ones who fear what you are." Jack nodded. For the first time, he didn't feel confused. He felt ready. He looked at the glowing machine and spoke clearly. "Then let's finish what my father started, outside." High in the sky, a new signal had been sent. The enemy had tracked the power surge, and they were coming fast. The wind outside howled like a warning. In the deep tunnel beneath the earth, the air had grown heavy. Jack stood at the center of the control room, watching the old screens flicker with strange symbols. The machine had accepted him, recognized him. But now it was showing something else, something dark, approaching fast. "They found us," Jack said. Lyra looked at the screen, her face pale. "They're not the hunters from before," she whispered. "They're worse." Jack nodded. "They're the ones who were created in the labs, the failed ones." Nia, still weak, sat in the corner. Her hands trembling, she didn't speak much. But when she looked at Jack, he could feel her fear. "They were made to be weapons," she said, "half human, half alien. All pain, they call themselves the rejected," Lyra added. "And they want to destroy everything connected to the project." Jack clenched his fists. "They'll come for you, and for me, too." Maeve, barely conscious, spoke in a weak voice. "They hate what they are. And they hate what you could become." For a moment, no one moved. Then Jack walked to the power core and opened a small panel. He pulled out an old transmitter, rusted. Fragile, but still functional. He turned the dial slowly, and the signal hummed to life. "What are you doing?" Lyra asked, calling someone who might still be listening. Jack said, "My father left a frequency marked Sanctuary. He said never to use it unless there was no other choice." He pressed the button. A sharp beep echoed, then silence. Then a soft voice crackled through. "This is Sanctuary Unit 3. Respond." Jack's heart jumped. "We need help. Coordinates are locked." "Hostile forces incoming," he said quickly. "We've got survivor Starians and a hybrid." There was a pause. Then the voice answered, "Understood. ETA 25 minutes. Hold your ground." Jack turned to Lyra. We just need to survive until they get here. But 25 minutes was a long time when death was hunting you. They prepared the entrance tunnels, setting up traps and hiding spots. Lyra and Jack reinforced the doors with metal bars. Naya sat near the center panel, fingers pressed to the machine. "She's speaking to the system," Lyra said. "She's trying to wake up the defenses buried deep underground." Jack didn't ask how that was possible anymore. He had stopped questioning the impossible. He only knew they had to make it through the next hour. Then it came. A loud boom shook the ground. The old tunnel walls groaned under the pressure. Dust fell from the ceiling as the door shook violently. "They're here," Jack said, gripping his rifle tight. The metal door burst open with a roar. Figures stepped through twisted shapes, neither human nor alien. Their faces were stretched, some with extra eyes. Others with glowing veins pulsing across their skin. Their movements were fast, unnatural, hungry. They didn't speak. Only growled and hissed. Jack fired the first shot. Hitting one in the chest, it fell, but got up again. Crawling with spider-like speed, Lyra threw a gas canister and lit it with a match. The flame exploded, filling the tunnel with smoke and fire. But they kept coming. One of them reached Jack and slammed him into the wall. He felt the pain shoot through his back, but before it could strike again. A wave of blue light burst from the ground. Nia was standing now. Her eyes glowing bright, arms stretched out. The control panel behind her lit up like a star. The walls trembled. And ancient machines hidden deep below activated. Metal pillars rose from the floor, spinning and firing beams of light. The rejected screamed as their bodies burned. More came. But the old system fought with power Jack had never seen. Still, it wasn't enough. There were too many, too fast, too strong. Suddenly, Maeve rose, her frail body glowing faintly. She walked into the center of the chaos and placed her hand on Nia's shoulder. Energy passed between them, warm, steady, full of love. Maeve turned to Jack, her eyes shining. "This is my last gift," she said. "Protect them." Then she walked into the light. Her body merging with the machine, the core exploded with a wave of blue fire. Clearing the room, all of the rejected were thrown back, screeching, some of them dissolving into dust. But Maeve was gone. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of Nia crying softly. Jack pulled her into his arms. "She saved us," he said. Lyra stood beside him, tears in her eyes. "She gave everything so we could live." Just then, the sound of engines echoed above. A ship hovered over the clearing, sleek and silver. A voice spoke through a loudspeaker. "This is Sanctuary Unit 3. We're here." Jack looked up. His body bruised, his heart heavy, but in that moment, he knew. They had survived the impossible because of courage, because of sacrifice, because of Maeve. The smoke had cleared. The battle was over. Jack stood at the edge of the tunnel's exit, blinking as the morning sunlight touched his face. It was warm, soft, and real after the long night underground. It felt like waking from a dream, but everything had changed. The silver ship from Sanctuary hovered silently above the trees. It had landed just after the final wave of rejected had been destroyed. Soldiers in gray uniforms moved carefully, scanning the area and checking the damage. They weren't like the hunters. They moved with care, spoke with respect. One of them approached Jack and saluted. "You're the one who sent the signal." Jack nodded, too tired to speak. The soldier looked past him and the survivors. Jack stepped aside as Lyra helped Nia up the stairs. The girl looked pale, still weak, but alive. When the soldiers saw her glowing eyes, they didn't raise their weapons. They bowed their heads instead. "She's one of the last," the commander said quietly. A living key. Nia didn't speak. She only looked up at Jack and whispered, "It's morning. Lyra followed behind. Her steps slow, her face covered in dirt and ash. But her eyes held strength. She stood beside Jack. Watching the soldiers begin their work, "What will happen now?" she asked. Jack shook his head. "I don't know." The commander walked closer. "We can offer protection," he said. "A place to rest, to rebuild." Lyra looked at Jack. Uncertain. "Will you come with us?" she asked. Jack took a deep breath. "I think it's time I stopped running from who I am," he said. "But I'm not going anywhere." The commander raised an eyebrow. "You want to stay here?" Jack nodded. "This land is mine, and now it's theirs too. I've got a bunker to fix, a house to rebuild, and maybe a future to shape. You can help us." From here, the commander considered this, then finally said, "Very well. We'll leave a contact unit and keep watch from orbit. If anything threatens you again, we'll respond." That afternoon, the soldiers left quietly. The ship rose into the sky like a falling star in reverse. Jack, Lyra, and Nia stood outside, watching it disappear into the clouds. Then they were alone again. But this time, it didn't feel lonely. Nia sat under the tree near the old shed. She traced shapes in the dirt with her finger symbols from her home world. Lyra brought her food and tea, now made with human hands, but filled with care. Jack walked the land slowly, fixing what he could: fence wires, broken panels, bent doors. Each piece he repaired felt like stitching together something broken inside him too. That night, they built a small fire. The stars above looked brighter somehow. Jack sat with Lyra and Nia, passing them roasted corn and smiling for the first time in days. Nia looked up at the sky and said, "Do you think there are others like us out there?" Jack nodded slowly. "I think there are more than we know." Lyra leaned back, watching the flames. "I used to dream of going home," she said, "but now, I don't know where home is anymore." Jack looked at her, his voice gentle. "Home is where you're safe," he said. "Where you're loved, right now. That's here." The fire crackled softly. Nia dozed off beside Lyra, wrapped in an old blanket. Lyra reached over and gently covered her. "She's strong," she whispered. "Stronger than me," Jack smiled. "She's not stronger," he said. "She's just not afraid to be who she is." Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with something new. Hope. Jack took a deep breath and stared into the fire. He thought of Maeve, her strength, her sacrifice. He thought of his father, the secrets he left behind. And he thought of himself, a man who once lived alone, afraid of the past. Now he had a future. The wind moved gently through the trees, carrying the soft scent of rain and soil. Everything was still, peaceful. But Jack knew the world was watching now. Aliens and humans had crossed paths in war and in mercy. Something new had begun, and he was part of it. As the fire burned low, Lyra turned to him. "Do you think it's over?" Jack shook his head. "No," he said, "but for now, we have peace, and that's enough." The stars above blinked quietly. Somewhere far away, others, like Nia, were waiting. Others who needed help, hope, or a home, maybe one day. They would come too, and when they did, Jack would be ready. Because he wasn't just a man with a bunker anymore. He was a protector, a bridge between worlds and this place. Once quiet and forgotten, had become something greater. A new beginning. By morning, the land would bloom again. Not just with plants, but with purpose. Jack looked at the sky and smiled. "I was alone," he whispered. "Now I have a family, and somewhere deep underground." The old machines hummed gently, alive again, waiting.